Alex. I recognized my grandson, Alex, standing at the crosswalk despite the slashing rain, standing out because he wasn't using an umbrella. I leaned over from the passenger seat, flung the door open, and called out loudly as if scolding him. "Alex, get in the car now."
Grandma, Grandma.
Once Alex saw my face, he smiled faintly and climbed into the passenger seat with heavy steps, then immediately leaned against me and became motionless. I shook his shoulder and slapped his cheek repeatedly, calling out, "Alex, Alex," but he kept his eyes closed, breathing roughly, and wouldn't respond. Touching his forehead, I felt an abnormal warmth and exclaimed, "He's burning up."
Grandma's hand feels good.
It seemed Alex faintly felt my touch, murmured this, and then lost consciousness. "Alex, stay with me." I pulled out a thermometer I always carry in my bag, placed it under his armpit, and it read 102.6 degrees Fahrenheit. This is dangerous. Realizing this, I immediately called 911. Soon, I heard the shrill siren of the emergency vehicle, along with announcements directing the line of cars to make way. "This way. Please hurry." Unable to stay put, I ran out into the pouring rain and signaled to the ambulance. My name is Catherine K., 56 years old. Having lost my husband 2 years ago, I now work at a diner called Relax Place, just a 10-minute drive from my home, to alleviate my loneliness. I have been like family with the owner and his wife for a long time, and my husband and son, Mike, used to often eat there on weekends. Since my husband died and Mike became independent, those times have become distant memories. However, now the moments I spend quietly watching my grandson Alex eat are my greatest joy. Mike's wife, Jenny, found out she had cancer 3 years ago and passed away despite treatment. Since then, I've occasionally taken care of Alex so he wouldn't feel lonely, as if I were standing in for Jenny. Perhaps I am being healed of the loneliness of losing my husband by Alex. A year ago, Mike told me about a woman he was considering remarrying. "You can't keep feeling down. For Jenny's sake, and for Alex's, you have to move forward," I always firmly told him, and I was relieved to hear this news. Her name is Sarah, a colleague from his company. She's 8 years younger than him. Mike often recalled her with a carefree smile, saying she was always ready to help him. I wondered how he would work with such a smitten expression, but saw a spark of life in his eyes for the first time in a long while. So even though I didn't say it out loud, I was cheering him on in my heart. "You can do it." Sarah promised to quit her job and become a full-time housewife to take care of Alex after getting married. "I can trust you with Mike and Alex. I'm looking forward to our future together." I had a good impression of her at that time. When I visited their apartment,
"Welcome, Catherine. I'll make some tea right away." "Well, let me bake some cake too. I'm really good at that."
Sarah greeted me with sparkling eyes and an overly enthusiastic manner. "Oh, thank you."
"Then how about a shoulder massage? You must be tired from the drive."
I was taken aback, but she seemed restless, unable to sit still.
I'm actually good at massages, you know. My parents back home always rave about them.
While she showed care for me, I felt a bit of discomfort at her eagerness to showcase her charm. From the moment I entered the room, her readiness to respond to every little action seemed overly deliberate to me, and I couldn't help but find it artificial. Furthermore, Sarah kept lamenting that she had run out of tea snacks.
If I had known you were coming today, I would have lined up in the morning to buy that popular pudding. What a shame. I'm such a thoughtless DIL. I apologize.
Sarah apologized so deeply that I felt embarrassed. Interacting with her, everything seemed calculated, but I hesitated to voice it. And after all, it's not my place to interfere in my son's marriage. Perhaps Sarah is just struggling to find the right distance with her new family. I convinced myself that over time, the emotional barriers between us would disappear. One day, a year after their marriage, Mike brought good news.
Sarah is pregnant.
His excited voice made me tear up. Is that so? Congratulations. That was all I could say with a trembling voice.
You seem very happy today. Something good happened.
My smile was so constant that even the owner of Relax Place teased me. A regular customer said my smile made them feel like working hard in the afternoon. I played it off by joking, "You won't get any extra treats for saying that," which livened up the diner. After work, I brought Sarah a bath salt and fruit basket, set as a pregnancy gift, hoping it would provide her some mental comfort. As this would be my second grandchild, I was thrilled at the thought of Alex having a sibling to grow up with. After parking in the visitor spot, I glanced at the park across the street and saw Alex sitting on a bench, looking down. "What are you doing here all alone?" When I called out, Alex looked up and smiled sadly. "It's not fun alone, right? I was about to go to your house. Want to join? There's plenty of fruit. Eat whatever you like." But he just shook his head, neither standing up from the bench or speaking, quickly dropping his gaze to the ground. I tried to take him to the apartment, but he resisted with unexpected strength.
I want to stay here,
he said, refusing to move, as if his feet were glued to the ground. There must be something. I sensed it, but felt reluctant to force Alex to come back against his will. "Wait here." I handed him an orange and went to the apartment alone. Exiting the elevator on my son's floor, I heard the laughter of a young man and woman. Am I intruding? I proceeded down the hallway with my head down, but the laughter was coming from my son's apartment. "What's going on, Sarah?" I thought there was a young couple chatting nearby. I saw Sarah and a delivery man in uniform at the door. They suddenly fell silent, and the delivery man left without a word. Isn't it odd for a delivery man not to speak to the resident after delivering? I asked, puzzled by the delivery man's behavior. Sarah then glared at me with an intensity I'd never seen before, but she quickly snapped out of it.
"Oh, Catherine, are you here?"
she said, trying to recover her composure. Then Alex came back from the park, walking slowly.
Hi, did that guy leave already?
When Alex asked this, Sarah glanced at me and smiled awkwardly.
Don't say weird things. That guy was just a delivery man. A friend living far away sent us a package,
she said, looking down at Alex. Alex stopped in his tracks, not moving any further, and apologized to Sarah with a frightened voice. I handed Sarah the bath salt and fruit basket set. I heard from Mike. You have a baby on the way. That's wonderful. Congratulations. I'll help in any way I can to ensure you have a healthy baby. Just let me know what you need. While saying this, I looked around the room, but I couldn't see the package that was supposed to have been delivered. Alex used to greet me with a bright smile whenever I visited, but today, for some reason, he was silent, playing on his smartphone in the corner of the room.
Hey, Alex, what are you doing over there? Grandma came to visit you.
Sarah pretended to smile, but her eyes weren't smiling. Alex whispered sorry again, in a frightened voice, and then came over to my side, glancing at his mother's face. Sarah talked alone until I left, but during that time, Alex didn't leave my side or say a word. The next weekend, Alex came to visit me at my house. That day, he was as lively as ever, amusingly telling me about things that happened at school. However, when a delivery truck stopped in front of the house, he tensed up and clung to me. What's wrong? Are you scared of that truck? But you used to love trucks, didn't you? An older, gray-haired delivery man came to get a signature for a package. Oh, thank you, I said as I signed, while Alex stayed hidden behind me. The delivery man greeted Alex with a big smile, saying hello, but Alex stiffened and apologized. The delivery man and I exchanged puzzled looks. What's wrong? This man isn't mad at you, you know.
Yeah, buddy, I'm not scary at all, see?
The delivery man said, pulling out a piece of candy from his pocket.
Here, take this and cheer up.
After handing the candy to Alex and driving away in his truck, I again asked Alex what was wrong, but he just averted his eyes, biting his lower lip in frustration. Then one day, a large typhoon approached the area where I lived. Although we avoided a direct hit, intermittent rain continued all day due to its effects. Some areas experienced band-like heavy rainfalls, with the news reporting a month's worth of rain might fall in just a few hours. At Relax Place, where there would normally be a line of customers waiting to get in during the busy lunch hour, the flow of customers was as sparse as dripping water due to the rain. As the wind grew stronger, even those few customers disappeared, leading the owner to sigh and say,
Looks like we won't have any customers today, Catherine. You can go home.
After packing up some leftover ingredients in a bag, I ran to my car parked behind the restaurant, struggling to keep my umbrella from turning inside out in the strong wind, and my clothes were soaking wet by the time I got in the car. I wiped my face and body with a towel I had in the dashboard, just to make me feel better. Turning on the radio, the sound was drowned out by the noise of the rain pounding outside, so I turned up the volume to the maximum. The rain will continue for a while, the anchor said carefully, but I could tell just by looking at the torrential rain slamming against the window. When I started driving onto the main road, I got stuck in a long traffic jam due to the typhoon's impact, which also paralyzed the rail service. The view through the windshield was a blurry white, but the traffic lights' red glared at the drivers at regular intervals, tauntingly bright. I wonder if there's anyone brave enough to walk the crosswalk in this downpour. Glancing casually at the sidewalk, I spotted a boy about elementary school age. "What, Alex?" I recognized him instantly because, despite the heavy rain, he stood out without an umbrella, dragging a plastic bag with its handle apparently torn off on the asphalt. I leaned over to the passenger seat to open the door and called out to him as if scolding, "Alex, get in right now."
Grandma, Grandma.
Seeing me, Alex smiled faintly, climbed into the passenger seat with heavy steps, then immediately leaned against me and became motionless. I shook his shoulder and slapped his cheek, calling out, "Alex, Alex," but he kept his eyes closed, breathing heavily, not responding. Feeling his forehead, I noticed an abnormal heat and exclaimed in shock, "Well, you are burning up."
Grandma's hand feels nice.
Feeling my touch, Alex murmured this before losing consciousness. "Alex, hold on." I quickly took the thermometer from my bag and placed it under his armpit, displaying a temperature of 103.1 degrees Fahrenheit. I rushed to send a message to Sarah via text, but no matter how long I waited, there was no reply, not even a read receipt. What is she doing at a time like this? Anger toward Sarah welled up, but I realized I needed to focus on saving Alex's life and immediately called 911. The plastic bag Alex clung to was stuffed with lots of snacks and fruits like apples, pears, and bananas, but I had no time to question it then. Soon, I heard the high-pitched siren of the emergency vehicle and announcements directing the traffic to make way. "This way, hurry, please." I couldn't stand still and ran out into the pouring rain to signal to the ambulance driver. Upon reaching the hospital, everything was set for immediate reception, and Alex was quickly attended to by a doctor.
"It's a cold, with symptoms of pneumonia. Fortunately, it's mild, and there's no threat to his life. We'll start within 4 and then move on to oral medication."
"Thank you," I said, relieved, but the doctor still looked concerned. Doctor, is there something else?"
"The cold isn't from getting rained on just now. He probably had it before then. The swelling of the tonsils and the rash under his nose. These don't happen in just an hour. It's likely that Alex had been sick with a cold since yesterday or the day before. Yet he was out in the rain without an umbrella. Poor thing. Look how red and chapped his nose is from wiping it so much. The pneumonia was mild, but a slight delay in treatment could have been life-threatening."
The doctor looked at me questioningly, but I had no idea how to respond.
Grandma.
Alex regained consciousness and called out to me in a weak voice. I held his hand and spoke gently into his ear. "Alex, what is it? Do you want to say something?"
That man. The delivery guy, he's really close with her. When Dad's at work, that guy always comes, and I've seen them hugging each other.
"Her? You mean Sarah?" Alex struggled to convey what he had witnessed, and I felt an overwhelming sense of anguish. This meant Sarah was having an affair.
I've been sick since yesterday. But today, that guy came again and told me to leave right now. I said no because I didn't want to go out in the rain. Then, the guy packed up various things into a plastic bag, telling me you are in the way, go play delivery boy, and sent me out.
The plastic bag, the one you had, filled with snacks and fruit, was it heavy? Did that delivery man make you carry it? Alex nodded clearly.
The guy said, take it to Grandma's place, with a laugh.
The doctor and I exchanged looks.
This is serious. As a doctor, I cannot overlook this situation.
I can't forgive her either. We must do something about that woman. The surge of anger and sorrow within me felt ready to explode. By the time I was heading home, the rain had stopped, and the sunlight shone brightly on the moist asphalt. Jenny, I'm so sorry for this. I promise to protect your precious Alex. I talked to the photo of Jenny smiling happily while holding newborn Alex. I felt guilty for not realizing his suffering. Not only was I angry at Sarah and her lover, but I also felt the weight of my own inadequacy. When Mike said he wanted to remarry, I was overjoyed, thinking it meant he could move past his sorrow and start anew. Now, feeling resentful towards my past self, I repeatedly punched my thigh, trying to release some of the pent-up emotions, though it was nothing compared to Alex's pain. The doorbell rang, and thinking it was a visitor, I hastily wiped my tears and forced a smile in the mirror. "Coming," I said, heading to the door to welcome the guest. There was Sarah, smiling, still unaware of everything.
I'm so sorry, Catherine, for making you look after Alex.
She was still playing the part of a considerate mother.
Alex, Mommy is here to pick you up. Come out.
Sarah called out loudly towards the back of the house, thinking Alex was playing there. What? Alex isn't here today. Are you saying he's not at your house? Then where could he have gone? I feigned ignorance about Alex's whereabouts, and Sarah's face turned pale rapidly.
What do you mean he's not here? Alex definitely said he was going to Grandma's house and left excitedly.
Did he really say that? That can't be true. It's been raining all morning, and the wind was so strong. Even adults would hesitate to go out in that weather.
But he clearly said he was going to deliver some snacks and fruits to Grandma. He must have been pretending to be a delivery boy.
Did he really say that, even though it was pouring rain outside? You let her 6-year-old run out into the storm without stopping him or even looking for him.
I didn't stop him, because, I let children do as they please, you know. I believe in respecting a child's autonomy. That's my parenting philosophy.
Sarah's attitude, as if the whole situation was Alex's fault, drove my anger to its peak. Alex is in the hospital now. He got wet in the heavy rain without an umbrella, developed pneumonia, and the doctor said it could have been life-threatening if treatment had been delayed.
What?
Sarah screamed in shock, then glared at me furiously.
Are you lying to me? Do you enjoy seeing me panic? Isn't that shameful?
I don't care what you think. What matters is Alex. He suffered enough. If you want to be a mother, start by putting your child first. Sarah attempted to argue, her teeth bared, but then realized the gravity of the situation and asked, "Which hospital is he at?" "I'll go get the car. Wait for me."
No need. I can't trust you.
Sarah refused with a frightening expression and called a taxi using her phone app. Was she trying to secretly communicate with her lover or conspiring to align their stories in case Alex's mistreatment came to light? I returned to the hospital to wait, and Sarah arrived about 10 minutes later.
Where is Alex Gay's room?
She asked hospital staff indiscriminately, pretending to be a concerned mother. However, she was stopped by a nurse at the entrance to the room.
This area is off limits for visitors. You are not allowed in.
Alex, Mommy is here now. You can relax.
Sarah smiled gently like a saint, but then two people in suits approached her. "Are you Sarah Kay? We need to talk to you. Please come with us to the station," showing their police badges.
What? Why do I have to go with the police? I'm his mother. Let me see Alex. What have I done to deserve this? Let me go.
Despite her resistance, the police officers remained calm and detained her firmly. The doctor who examined Alex had advised involving the police, believing Alex's testimony couldn't be ignored.
If my grandson were in the same situation, I might not be satisfied with just going to the police.
The doctor said, half jokingly, half seriously, with a hearty laugh. It was getting dark outside, but I saw that Mike, who should have been on a business trip, had called. I called him back.
I had a meeting in the next county and came home early to find no one there, and I was shocked.
I told Mike everything that had happened that day without hiding anything. Initially, he was skeptical, but his tone gradually fell, and he promised to look around the house for any evidence. About an hour later, Mike called back.
One piece of evidence after another. Photos and videos of them looking cozy together, even traces of them using our bedroom.
Learning of his wife's betrayal and the mistreatment of his precious son left by his late wife, Mike spoke as if venting his hatred. Later, Sarah was arrested for child neglect, and her lover, the delivery man, was also arrested and charged as a co-conspirator. Frankly, I still don't want to believe that Sarah could do such horrible things to Alex. I wish all of Alex's suffering were just lies. It might sound odd with the trial coming up, but I feel like running away right now. Hearing the truth is just too painful. But facing that truth head-on is the only thing we can do for Alex now. Reliving his suffering through the trial is all we have. Feeling helpless, I convinced myself that exposing the crimes Sarah and her lover committed in court is our duty. As the trial began, Sarah kept looking down in the defendant's seat, making me think she regretted her actions. However, when she looked up and caught my eye, without any concern for those around, she twisted her face and stuck out her tongue defiantly. The media were stunned by Sarah's lack of remorse. What a terrible person. Does she understand her situation? Were the cries from around the room. The judge had to call for order to quiet the commotion. Sarah, smirking, took the stand and began narrating the events leading up to the incident as if giving a business report. She admitted seeing an opportunity when Mike, who was advancing in his career, became depressed after losing his beloved wife.
Well, honestly, he wasn't my type, but he seemed wealthy and likely to become more powerful, so I thought I could live comfortably by getting involved with him.
She spoke frankly, showing no remorse. Sarah revealed that her affair with her lover, Michael, predated her relationship with Mike.
He's handsome, just like movie stars, and exactly my type.
She continued her relationship with Michael, thinking it unlikely to be discovered by Mike, who was often away for work. She also confessed to finding Alex annoying from the start. His expressions, which sometimes resembled those of the late Jenny, stirred up feelings of hatred in her. While meeting Michael, she treated Alex harshly, laughing at his crying and making sure he couldn't enter the house when they were together. They even recorded these moments on their smartphones.
When I threatened him with a scary face saying, "Don't tell anyone," he surprisingly listened. It was quite fun for me. But when I got pregnant with Michael's child, I panicked. If the affair came out, I'd be thrown out, losing access to any money. So I had an idea. I can just have the baby and pretend it's my husband's. That way, the affair wouldn't be discovered, and even the unborn child would have inheritance rights. Thinking that, Alex's presence became an unbearable nuisance.
After Sarah finished explaining her motives for mistreating Alex, the courtroom fell silent, appalled by her selfishness. Her lawyer, sweating, tried desperately to mitigate her crimes.
Are we not done yet?
Sarah yawned, undermining her lawyer's efforts. She continued on the stand.
It wasn't just Alex. Catherine, too, coming over every single time something happened, was unbearably annoying to me. I wanted every single second with Michael. It was so annoying.
Her blunt expression of her feelings further worsened the judge's impression of her. As a result, she received a harsher sentence than the prosecution's request, and the trial concluded. Needless to say, Mike and Sarah's divorce was finalized. Forced to pay a substantial amount in alimony, Sarah's life of poverty was set in stone.
Alex, I was wrong. I was always busy with work and left you under Sarah's care. It must have been hard. Marrying such a terrible woman was my mistake. I am truly sorry.
It's okay, Dad. I love you. But I have one request.
What is it? Anything you want, just tell me, and I'll buy it for you.
It's not that. What I want most is to be with you.
Mike, with tears in his eyes, then hugged his son tightly, shouting, "Alex." Later, Mike applied for a transfer from his travel-intensive job to a more stable office position. Everyone was surprised, but given the recent events, no one objected. Years later, after being released from prison, Sarah and Michael began loitering around our home.
It's your family's fault we're labeled as criminals. Can't rent a place or get a job. You've made us suffer. Take responsibility.
I immediately called the police to handle Sarah's misplaced accusations. Afterward, Mike and I decided to sell our house and move to a secure luxury apartment using the sale proceeds. Returning to the relaxed place with Mike and Alex after a long time, the owner greeted us with a smile.
"Alex, have you grown taller since I last saw you?"
As I stood up, asking out of habit, "Can I help with anything?" The owner came over.
No need, Catherine. You're a guest today, right? And it's my treat. Especially since Alex is here too. Eat whatever you like.
I love the fried pork meal here. But even more than that, I love being with Dad and Grandma the most.
Seeing my grandson's smile return, I swore to my heart, I will never let that smile be taken away again.
My trip to Guam with your husband is great fun. What would you like as your souvenir?
I could picture my sister's smug face as if she was on a cheating trip. But I calmly replied without getting angry. My niece's funeral is going on right now. Besides, my husband is right here.
What did you say?
What my sister saw when she turned pale at my words and literally flew back. My name is Sophia. I'm a 29-year-old part-time housewife. I have only recently become a housewife. The truth is, I just got married a few days ago. Ralphie, who became my husband, is a colleague from work, and as we worked together, we developed a good relationship and finally tied the knot. That said, being workaholics, we considered weddings a waste of time and didn't bother with a ceremony, we just filed the paperwork. Someday I will wear a wedding dress for a photo shoot, but now is not the right time for that during the busy season. As for why we got married during such a busy period, well, it was simply a matter of timing. We're busy now, but the season ahead will be even busier, and procrastinating on getting married wouldn't be efficient, we figured. I guess you could call it a simple marriage. No way. That's not the case at all. We've made it a rule never to mix work and personal life. While we're at work, we're both total workaholics, but once we're home, we switch gears completely. At home, we're just a sweet newlywed couple. Even though we didn't have a ceremony, we went to each other's parents' homes to pay our respects. Neither set of parents had any problem with us not having a ceremony, they accepted it as modern. We sent out greeting cards to relatives, and that was that. So, our marriage proceeded smoothly and uneventfully. Except for one problem. That problem is my sister, Emma. She's already married now, but she used to be man-eater. Well, at least in my mind she was. Moreover, my sister has a habit of taking things from others. In general society, when it comes to siblings, the basic rule is you're the older sister, so you should give way to your younger sister, right? Well, that's an old-fashioned way of thinking, and our parents never said anything like that. But instead of dismissing it as an old-fashioned notion, my sister twisted it around to the opposite idea. My younger sister's things are mine. What do I mean? She stole my boyfriend. My very first boyfriend when I was in 8th grade.
Oh, he's cute.
From me, who was having a cute puppy love-like romance at the time due to my age, my sister stole my boyfriend. I just turned 14 and my 19-year-old sister took my boyfriend. It's unbelievable, but it's believable when it comes to my sister. And once my ex-boyfriend became infatuated with my sister, she dumped him. In other words, my sister just enjoys the game of taking things away from me. Heartbroken, I couldn't get another boyfriend for a while, but I finally got one as a senior in high school. However, I was busy right before graduating from high school, so he comforted my heart. But, as fate would have it, my sister, a working adult, came home while my boyfriend and I were studying together at home.
Oh, he's cute.
She said the same line I'd heard somewhere before, and once again, she stole my boyfriend. Why am I so easily taken from? My sister and I don't look alike. I take after my father, who has an average face. On the other hand, my sister inherited the stunningly beautiful face of our grandmother, who was even more beautiful than our mother, through a throwback gene. I hate to admit it, but my sister is truly beautiful. Also, she has a shapely figure without exercise or restricting her diet. On the other hand, I can't lose weight no matter how hard I try to diet. And teenagers, well, they're just going to choose based on looks anyway. So, when it comes to a beautiful older sister, I don't stand a chance, do I? After experiencing 2 heartbreaks at the hands of my sister, I decided to attend a university far away. Living alone while studying and working part-time, I started working afterward. I never returned to my hometown, because I didn't know what my sister might do if I did. Even my sister, who is now married and a mother of 1. As expected, she wouldn't do anything to my husband, but I was careful of her. People don't change that easily, I think. When I went to visit my parents, my sister wasn't there. I sent a wedding announcement, but got no response. I have a bad feeling about this. As I muttered that, my husband, who knows everything, just laughed it off.
Well, it should be fine. You're apart, and you hardly ever meet, right?
He's laughing now, but would he still be laughing if he met my sister? Even my ex-boyfriends used to say, it's okay, but it definitely wasn't when they were actually approached by my sister. Still, Ralphie is a 30-year-old grown man. I can't imagine him being swayed by just a pretty face. At least, I want to believe that. It's not that I don't trust my husband, but it's just that it's my sister.
You used to date such lame guys.
She laughs while snatching her sister's boyfriends, and once she snatches them, she easily discards them and laughs. I couldn't trust my sister more than my husband. Then one day, I got a call from my sister. I didn't want to answer, but ignoring it would be immature, so I picked up the phone.
Long time no see. Congratulations on getting married.
That's my sister's first words to her sister in a while. I regretted answering after all.
But still, it's a late marriage, isn't it? I got married at 27, you know.
She's only 2 years older than my marriage age, but she's taking the high ground.
My 5-year-old daughter is said to be a gifted child in kindergarten. She's beautiful like me. I'm glad she doesn't look like her auntie.
And then she's trying to put me down. Her aunt, you mean me. After babbling about her own happiness, she finally got to the point.
What's your husband like?
I thought this question would come. So I'll just say something vague. He's a normal guy.
How about his income?
About half of what your husband makes, I guess.
What does he look like?
I told you, he's just average. A plain guy who matches me. Sorry, Ralphie. You're the coolest husband in my eyes, but I have to say this to my sister. I apologize to my husband in my mind.
Sounds plain indeed.
That's why I said he's normal.
What does he do?
He works at the same company as me.
What? Is it an affair with your boss that led to a shotgun marriage?
Are you kidding me? We're both marrying for the first time after dating normally. What a wild imagination. I'm furious, but my sister on the other end of the phone is laughing hysterically.
Well, that's so like you. Anyway, I hope you two are happy. I hope your marriage lasts long.
She said so and hung up. Her way of saying things made me angry all day. Then a few days later, something unbelievable happened.
Hey, Sophia, want to have lunch outside today?
My coworker and friend, Sarah, asked. I agreed, and as I stepped out of the lobby to go outside.
Oh, Sophia, there you are. I was just about to call you at the reception. Perfect timing.
I turned around to see who called my name, and I frowned and made a strange noise. Because my sister came running towards me. Why is my sister, who lives 2 hours away by train, here? What's up, sis? What are you doing here?
I just came on a little trip.
She's saying it like she just happened to come here for shopping. Who takes a trip just for that? And this place isn't even a tourist spot or anything. My sister looks around suspiciously while making excuses and scanning the area.
Looks like quite a nice company.
I have a bad feeling about this. Please, dear husband, don't show up. Just as I'm thinking that, I get called out.
Sophia.
Turning around, I see several coworkers standing there. Of course, my husband is among them.
Lunch break.
Well, yeah, sure.
Oh, who's there?
Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia's sister. Thank you for always taking care of her.
Saying this, my sister shook hands with him without listening to my stillness.
Nice to meet you too.
Oh my God, how handsome he is.
My sister exclaimed while shaking hands.
Sophia, seriously, what's so ordinary about him?
What?
He's more handsome than my husband. I'm glad to meet him.
My sister's starting to wriggle her body. I think she's turned on.
If you ever have any trouble with my sister, don't hesitate to contact me.
With that, my sister handed him a note with her contact information and left. Why did she even bother preparing that?
See you.
Leaving us dumbfounded, my sister walked away.
Well, your sister is unique.
One of the coworkers present commented. All I could do was give a wry smile. After a while, I suddenly received a call from my sister again. I wanted to ignore it, but she kept calling and calling, so I reluctantly called back.
I'm going to Guam next time, so I've decided to leave my daughter at our parents' house during that time. Take care of her if anything happens.
Huh? It's quite far from our place to our parents' house.
Our parents are getting old and don't have the energy anymore. It's okay since it includes a holiday.
Whether it's okay or not is up to the receiver to decide, not the one making the request. Going to Guam with your husband? I understand needing for holidays sometimes. As I was talking, I heard a male voice saying, "Who are you talking to?" from behind my sister. Oh, your husband has the day off today? Today is a weekday, and I called my sister back during my work break. My sister is a housewife, but her husband is a regular company employee. Wasn't he supposed to be working on weekdays?
Just a minute, I'm talking to my sister.
Oh, Sophia.
Wait a second. I raised my voice at that.
What's wrong?
My sister replied. Who are you talking to right now? Could it be?
It's your husband, who I happened to run into. We're siblings by marriage, so don't worry about it.
What are you saying?
Well, see you later.
Ignoring my voice, my sister hung up the phone. Unbelievable. My exclamation echoed in the break room. After a while, I heard that my niece had been dropped off at my parents' house. My sister told our parents that she was going on a trip to Guam with a friend. Apparently, it was a trip planned around her husband's long business trip, so my niece was left with our parents. Going on a cheating trip is just unbelievable.
What did you say?
My mother tilted her head at my muttered comment, but I shook it off as nothing. While I was irritated with my sister, my niece was innocent. So, on this holiday, I came to take care of my adorable niece at my parents' house.
Auntie Sophia, look, isn't it cute?
You've drawn it very cute. My niece, Mia, innocently showed me a picture of her beloved hamster. As I praised her and stroked her head, she smiled happily. My niece was very cute, and she would surely grow up to be beautiful in the future. I clenched my fist, determined to protect her pure heart so she wouldn't become like my sister. But then, the situation took a sudden turn.
You are.
Soon after, I heard my niece scream, and the house erupted into chaos. While I was staying at my parents' house, I was moving around. Just as I was busy, I received a call from my sister. Thinking she might be worried about her daughter, I reluctantly picked up, but her carefree voice made me want to hang up immediately.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm busy right now, what's up?
Oh, Guam is just so amazing.
That's great. Gotta go.
Bye.
Wait, guess who's next to me right now?
A friend?
Yes, exactly. So, what's your husband up to?
Ralphie? What about him?
He's not there, right? He's away on business trip, isn't he? Well, I guess so, huh?
Irritated by my sister's suggestive tone, I took a deep breath and decided to be patient. What's going on?
Hey, are you on the phone with someone again?
Suddenly, I heard another male voice on the line. And my sister laughed in response.
Come on, wait a sec, Ralph. Oops. Did you hear that?
She's definitely doing this on purpose. I didn't hear anything. I replied to avoid further engagement.
Oh, really? That's a shame. Oh well, you heard it, but you're pretending you didn't, right? Sorry, I'm just too happy.
You know what? I'm really busy right now. Can I talk later?
Don't say that, it'll be over soon. So, about my trip to Guam with your husband. It's just fantastic.
He's being so straightforward, this jerk. But my heart remained calm. I was very composed in that regard. Perhaps because she couldn't see my face and thought I was flustered and silent, my sister continued without waiting for my response.
So, I'll bring back souvenirs for you. The person who is coming with me will bring it back, so please take it.
She didn't even bother hiding it anymore, and I couldn't help but feel exasperated.
Oh, by the way, what kind of souvenirs do you want? Something sweet.
Look, I can't deal with this anymore. Right now, we're in the middle of Mia's funeral.
What did you say?
My words were met with a delayed response. Didn't you hear? Your daughter. Mia, she's in the middle of a funeral.
No. What are you saying? Stop joking.
I don't joke about matters of life and death. Besides, taking a breath, I looked up at the person standing beside me. My husband is right here.
Wait, what does that mean?
I could hear my sister's anxious voice on the other end of the phone, but I ignored it and hung up. The one who chuckled at my snorting irritation was unmistakably my husband, Ralphie. Several hours later,
Mia.
There was a person who jumped into the house shouting loudly. Of course, it was my sister. It seems she's a mother too, after all. She must have hopped on a plane and flown back immediately. A panicked sister entered the living room where we were relaxing.
What's the deal with Mia's funeral?
Right after she shouted as she came in, my sister's eyes widened in surprise.
What?
A childish voice called out to her.
Mommy?
Mia. Wait, what's going on? A funeral means.
Tears welled up in my niece's eyes at my sister's words.
Oh no.
She had finally stopped crying just now. She must have remembered and started feeling sad again.
Mommy, my hamster. He...
Saying so, my niece pointed to the empty hamster cage, then handed a small box to my sister. It was an urn containing the bones of hamster.
No way. What does this mean?
When my sister looked at me for an explanation, Mia's beloved hamster passed away suddenly yesterday. He was quite old, so it couldn't be helped.
But you just said Mia's funeral.
Oh, that. I meant Mia's beloved hamster's funeral, but didn't it come across?
How could it possibly come across?
My sister's scream echoed through the house. Ignoring that, I turned my gaze to the person who came with my sister. So, is he with you? As I indicated the man, my sister, who seemed to have lost her composure as she collapsed to the floor, retorted in frustration.
What are you saying? He's your husband, isn't he?
Why does she have to get so angry? As I said before, my husband is right here.
You seriously, cut it out.
Glaring at me with anger, my sister finally noticed and turned her gaze to the man sitting next to me.
Who's that? The ridiculously ordinary-looking guy.
How rude. He's Ralphie, my husband.
Seriously.
My husband smiled wryly at my sister, who rolled her eyes.
Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia's husband.
Then who's the Ralph over there?
He's another person with the same name, Ralphie.
Oh no.
Yes, the person standing next to my sister. He happened to be named Ralphie as well. And both my husband and I knew that person very well.
But you said that guy at the office was your husband.
I didn't say that. That Ralph is a friend from high school who coincidentally joined the same company. We got close because of having the same name, and then my friend Ralph introduced me to the Ralphie who would become my husband, and we started dating and got married.
I don't get it. What's up with that?
I don't get it either. You suddenly showed up at the office, then gave your phone number to my friend Ralph without acknowledging my husband Ralphie. And that Ralph, he also greeted you. He's always been a ladies' man. Everyone was astonished. My sister was speechless at my words. Yes, on that day, the day my sister stormed into the office. The guy we bumped into while about to go for lunch, along with my friend Ralph, was none other than my husband Ralphie and several other male coworkers. It seems like my sister only has eyes for handsome guys. She got fixated on my friend Ralph, completely ignoring my plain and easy-to-miss husband.
Because he greeted me.
We've known each other since high school. Ralph naturally greeted you when he found out you were my sister.
Is that so?
Yes, it doesn't mean much. With a smile, my sister now glared at my friend Ralph.
And why didn't you correct her? Remember when I asked you why you married such a plain woman?
Well, I didn't deny it, but I didn't confirm it either. I just said Emma was more attractive than Sophia.
Ralph spoke truthfully in spite of my presence. My sister, blushing and turning pale, is flustered.
Ralph, you're at fault too. Why are you getting involved with a married woman?
My husband said somewhat angrily. But Ralph shrugged his shoulders somewhat helplessly.
Well, she said she was divorced, and she asked me out officially. I was just intending to play around though.
What did you say?
My sister turned red again at Ralph's words.
What's that supposed to mean? You were just playing with me.
Suddenly there was a male voice.
So were you serious?
Well, of course. I even got divorced. Wait, huh?
My sister slowly turned her eyes to the door behind. And her eyes widened dramatically.
Why are you here? Aren't you on a business trip?
My client couldn't make it, so it's ended early. I was surprised when I got home and there was no one there. Then Sophia called to tell me you were here. When did you divorce me?
That's dumb. No, divorce was just a joke.
My sister was dumbfounded. Above her, still collapsed on the floor, came the voice of my friend Ralph.
Hey, what's the deal? You're not divorced, so that means you were just playing around with me too, right? You're in no position to blame me. Ridiculous.
What did you say?
I don't need a woman who lies about something as important as divorce.
My friend Ralph said so and apologized to my sister's husband.
I'm terribly sorry for not knowing. Although it doesn't seem like something money can fix, I'll pay compensation as an apology.
Saying that, Ralph handed over his business card and left.
Wait, Ralph, I'm serious about you.
Oh, really?
My sister's attempt to follow was met with her husband's cold voice. When she came to herself, she saw her husband with cold eyes.
You know. Wait, what I said was just a little joke.
I'm tired of your lies.
What?
You lied about taking care of Mia during my business trip and going out with your friend. You lied about divorcing me.
Well, that's scur.
But it's also pitiful that you've become a liar.
What are you talking about?
My sister's husband nodded as if to understand something.
So, let's get divorced. That way, what you said won't be a lie anymore.
Wait.
Well, it's not technically we're divorced, but we're going to divorce from now on. That's acceptable, right?
Wait a minute.
Of course I'll sue for damages, and I'll have custody. I'll be the one raising Mia, and I'll make sure to get child support too.
Well, hold on.
No holding on. From now on, we'll communicate through lawyers. Mia, let's go home.
Saying this, my sister's husband held out his hand to my niece. My niece looked puzzled.
Are we going home?
Yeah, we are.
My sister's husband nodded.
Wait a minute. Are you trying to take the mother away from her?
My sister yelled, thinking she could somehow manage by using her child as a shield. Her husband took a moment to think about it. Then, he glanced at Mia.
Mia, do you feel lonely without Mom?
No, I'm not lonely.
Mia replied immediately.
What? Hold on, Mia, you're okay without your mom.
My sister looked at Mia in disbelief.
But Mom, you're never at home on days when Dad isn't around. You always go out to play, leave me watching TV, and come home late at night. Dinner is always a cold.
Emma, did you neglect your parenting?
It's all new to him. The angry her husband glared at my sister.
What? It's your fault for pushing child care onto me, isn't it?
You want to take good care of your child, so you become a stay-at-home mom. Besides, I took care of Mia on the weekend. I thought you were tired. Did you cheat on me?
Well, that's
enough. I'll talk to the lawyer about what's next after getting a full account from your cheating partner earlier.
Wait a minute, you.
I don't care. Mia, let's go.
Okay, bye, Mom.
Trying to reach out, my sister's hand was easily dismissed by her daughter, who said,
Goodbye.
Without hesitation. The door slammed in front of my disappointed sister. Afterward, following discussions, my sister and her husband got divorced. Apparently, my sister had been cheating not only with my friend Ralph, but also with others, leading to a divorce entirely on her fault. Even when she came to my company, claiming it was a trip, it turned out to be an affair trip. My friend Ralph apparently paid compensation to my sister's husband. Then he apologized and quit the company. I thought he didn't have to go that far, but he said it was a matter of a man's pride. I hope this incident will be a wake-up call for him, who has always been popular with women, to start a sincere relationship.
Until you pay off your debts, don't come back.
My sister was kicked out of my parents' house. As a stay-at-home mom, she couldn't pay compensation or child support, so my parents had to cover for her. Well, my parents probably didn't expect to get their money back, but they did it because they wanted to see their granddaughter, Mia. With nowhere to go after the divorce and unable to return to her parents' house, my sister contacted me.
I thought it was strange, you marrying such a handsome guy.
Don't ever contact me again. I said and hung up the phone.
Sorry. It was my fault. I won't take your man anymore.
She called repeatedly in a panic, so I hung up silently and blocked her calls. I don't know what happened to my sister after being abandoned by both parents and me.
I saw someone who looked like Emma, but she was completely different, completely drained, and not a trace of her former beauty.
A neighbor who knew my sister said, but I don't care. I'm not sure if it was really my sister, but I probably won't ever see her again. I'm exhausted.
You went through a lot.
As I rubbed my shoulders, my husband Ralphie handed me warm milk with a wry smile. Thank you, I said, looking at my husband.
What's with that look? You're making me blush.
Oh, no, I was just thinking you're such a great guy.
Only Sophia would say that.
Well, I'm glad. I'm the only one who knows how attractive you are. Saying that, I smiled, and my husband hugged me back.
Get out of here, you worthless woman.
In front of me, glaring at me as if with deep contempt, is my husband. When he calls me worthless woman, I instinctively touch my own stomach. I've suffered for this belly, giving birth to 3 daughters with my husband. But what my husband wanted was a son. I still remember being told, when I gave birth to our eldest daughter, and then our second daughter, next time, it'll be a boy. When our 3rd daughter was born, my husband even left the naming entirely up to me. I sighed, feeling like divorce might be inevitable. Tommy, my husband just smirked faintly.
Don't worry about an heir. There's already someone who'll give birth to a boy.
I'm Angie, a full-time housewife. I've just turned 40. I'm currently living with my husband, Tim, and our 3 daughters. It's been 3 years since I gave birth to our 3rd daughter. This month, I've decided to quit being a full-time housewife and start working. That's because with just my husband's income, it's impossible to afford the extracurricular activities for our 2 older daughters. I've decided to work for the sake of our 3 children. Fortunately, I found a job quickly, and now I'm working while also covering our household expenses. But lately, my husband has been complaining more and more about how we need to take care of his aging parents because they are getting older.
I'd really appreciate it if you could quit your job to take care of my parents, Angie.
It's still too much to ask.
What's that? With my salary alone, we can live comfortably if we're not extravagant, right?
I haven't been extravagant at all. I'm working because with just your income, we can't afford extracurricular activities for the kids.
We don't need them to have extracurricular activities. They don't have to learn anything.
This is how my husband always complains to me. So, whenever this topic comes up, I've learned to deal with it casually.
Are you listening, Angie?
I understand. I'll try to help out. Honestly, I'm not fond of my in-laws. So, deep down, I don't want to cooperate with their care. But my husband and I live near his parents' house. When we got married, my husband suggested we start our married life in an apartment near his parents' house. At the time, I didn't know his parents' true nature, so I casually agreed, thinking, that'll make things easier for me too. But soon enough, I witnessed their true colors. It was about 6 months into our marriage. My mother-in-law asked me to help clear out a space to put a big table they'd bought so we could all gather, and when I went to help at my in-laws, that's when it happened. I was treated like a servant by my in-laws, constantly being told to put that over there, clean this up, bring out the tea, and so on. As a newlywed, I didn't know how to handle it, so I just went along with whatever my in-laws said. Because of that, every time I visited my in-laws, the treatment got worse and worse. Every visit to my in-laws' house felt like being treated as a servant, forced to listen to my in-laws' old stories and tales of hardship for tens of minutes. And then they'd end by saying, "Hurry up and give birth to a male heir," even meddling in our private life.
That's because having a boy is better. Actually, there's no point in giving birth if it's not a boy.
Even my husband, who wanted children, says things like this. When I got pregnant, the only thing my husband and in-laws cared about was the baby's gender. When they found out our first was a girl, I was berated and subjected to hurtful words.
It's just the balance. Having a son would be nice, you know.
And when the second and third were also girls, my in-laws blatantly lost interest in them. All my in-laws have ever said is, "You must give birth to a boy next time."
Why is the house always messy, even though there's no rowdy boy playing around? Blaming busyness, you can't even clean properly. Because you're such an negligent woman, maybe that's why you can't give birth to a boy.
Even though you've only given birth to girls, you'll end up marrying them off elsewhere anyway. If you're not going to produce an heir, you should focus on serving us, the heads of the family.
This is how they speak, despite being their own grandchildren. I didn't want to go to a house I wasn't invited to and didn't want to visit, to be treated like this. It's unbearable. I've told my husband many times that I want to keep my distance from my in-laws, but it never resonates.
The house being messy is a fact, isn't it? Girls are supposed to quietly play with picture books, right? So why is it so messy? If you can't even handle cleaning, which is supposed to be a woman's job, maybe that's why you can't produce a boy.
I don't think it's fair to say that housework and childcare is my wife's job when we both work and raise 3 kids.
If you're going to use work as an excuse, why not just quit and become a housewife? If you can't do that, then maybe what Mom is saying is true, isn't it?
Do you think you can support me and our 3 daughters with your income alone? That's why I'm working too. His words give me a headache. Sure, in the past, it was an era where the husband worked outside and the wife protected the home and children. But now, it's not that era anymore. It's become commonplace for wives to work too. Accepting that as the flow of the times, to say that household chores and childcare are still solely a wife's job, is just too antiquated. No matter how many times I explain, my husband doesn't change. Mom's right, exactly what Dad says. Every time those words are thrown back at me, divorce crosses my mind. But my daughters, who know nothing, are attached to my husband. Only our eldest, a middle schooler, seems to have some reservations about my husband. probably due to her adolescence, she doesn't seem to interact much with him. Still, when I see our youngest innocently smiling and begging for a hug from her daddy, I can't bring myself to divorce. Then, around 3 months later, something strange started happening. For some reason, my husband's return home became increasingly delayed. Suspicious, I asked him about it when he finally came home. "Tim, you've been coming home unusually late lately. Is something going on at work?"
Nah, just happened to be. One of my team members messed up today, so I had to stay overtime. Don't worry about it.
The words my husband spoke, I believed them at first. But as time passed, and he started coming home late more often, I began to question. He'd say, got held up with entertaining clients, or meeting with partners ran long. Despite feeling suspicious about my husband's behavior and actions, I couldn't muster the courage to confront him, afraid of taking away the beloved father from my children. I began to live as if I didn't mind my husband's late returns. This continued for about 6 months until one day, a coworker said something to me.
"I saw him walking with a young woman in the downtown area."
"He's at work. There's no way that's possible." I told her so, but
"I couldn't have mistaken it,"
she insisted. We were close friends, often going camping or having barbecues together with our families due to our kids being around the same age. My friendly husband and this coworker always got along well when they met. So I knew she wouldn't mistake my husband for someone else. But even knowing that, I desperately wanted to believe in my husband.
"When we meet next time, should I say something?"
Feeling my heart stop momentarily at her words. "I'll talk to my husband properly," I assured her. Though what she saw wasn't my husband, I hoped it was just a mistake. I visited a detective right after work to request an investigation. 5 days later, the detective contacted me, saying it was quite straightforward. When I met the detective after work, I was given substantial evidence. There were several photos of my husband entering a hotel with another woman, and the results were damning. Deciding to confront my husband about his infidelity as soon as I got home. Even though he had come home before me, he was just sitting in the living room, scrolling on his phone. I saw my eldest daughter taking her younger sisters to their room as soon as she noticed my presence. Feeling sorry for them, I couldn't hold back from confronting my husband about the affair. "Tim, care to explain what this is all about? I've been hearing excuses about overtime and entertaining clients, but is going to a hotel with a business partner considered entertainment now?" My husband remained silent, his face turning cold as he started dialing a number somewhere. For some reason, my husband has decided to remain silent and not talk to me. Why won't you say anything? Does your silence mean you're admitting to it?
It's got nothing to do with you, Angie.
You think it's okay to cheat on your wife and pretend like it doesn't concern her?
It's got nothing to do with you.
No matter how many times I asked, all my husband said was, "It's got nothing to do with me." Then suddenly, the intercom in our house started ringing. thinking it was a bad time, but considering feigning ignorance, my husband immediately went to answer the door. It was my in-laws who came in through the door. And there she was, the woman from the photos I received from the detective. What's going on? Did you call them?
I wasn't planning on telling the truth until everyone was here.
Well, everyone's here now, so explain, what's the meaning of these photos? I confronted my husband again, thrusting the photos in his face.
Angie, she's pregnant with a boy. Our family needs a male heir to carry on the lineage. I've been saying this to you even before we got married. We need a boy in our family. And yet, you've given birth to nothing but girls, Angie. So you're of no use anymore. Get out immediately.
My husband, finally talking properly, came at me with absurd accusations while handing me divorce papers. Wait a minute, pregnant, what does that mean? How far did you go for that to happen? Sure, I knew about the desire for a son, but there's no way to choose the gender, right? Besides, weren't you fond of our daughters?
You were the one who could only give birth to a girl while listening to Tim. If you are such a person, shut up and leave this house.
I am sorry, but I am not talking to mother-in-law right now. I am talking to Tim. Tim, please explain to me what the hell is going on. I questioned my husband, and for some reason my parents-in-law entered the conversation.
Angie, you've always been someone who couldn't give birth to anything but girls despite Tim's wishes. It's best for you to leave quietly.
I'm sorry, but I'm not talking to father-in-law right now. I'm talking to Tim. So why are the two of you interfering? Please don't try to change the subject. Despite my protest, my husband let out a heavy sigh.
Enough now. Don't we? We don't need to discuss anything. All you need to do is leave this house quietly.
What are you saying? We have 3 daughters, and surely you understand that with my current income alone, it's impossible to support all 3, right, Tim?
It's got nothing to do with me. You wanted to have all girls, didn't you? Just get out.
Don't be ridiculous. What do you mean wanted to have? You used to care for all 3 of them, didn't you? Why are you suddenly saying this? As I expected my husband to say something in response to my words, it was his affair partner who retorted.
This is why dealing with older women is such a hassle. If you're told to leave, you should just leave without fuss.
What's your problem? It's your appearance that's making things complicated in the first place.
Complicated? It's just because the wife couldn't bear a son, isn't it?
The affair partner smirked while looking at me. Somewhere deep down, I realized I had been expecting too much from my husband. With 3 children, and the youngest daughter adoring Tim so much, I desperately wanted to believe that divorce wasn't the only right answer. Even my husband thought that if he was confronted with the evidence, his children would be on his mind. I believed that even if I could not reform and become a good family friend, he would be a good father in front of his children. But in reality, he just brazenly brought his affair partner even in front of our children, showing no remorse. I understand, I'll divorce you. I've had enough, I was too naive. Feeling this acutely, I stood up and went to pack my things. Though I felt a pang of irritation towards the affair partner, who was smirking as she watched me, I didn't care anymore. I snatched the divorce papers from Tim and signed them hurriedly. I wrote my name as the custodian for our daughters. I'll take custody of all 3 daughters. I'll demand compensation and child support later. I'll leave for now, but I'll come back for the things I can't take with me later.
Do whatever you want.
Even my usually sarcastic in-laws listened to our conversation without making any snide remarks, though they looked displeased. It seemed they were leaving this discussion to Tim. That's how my husband, knowing all that, came at me all bold-faced. I sensed the tension and hugged my eldest daughter, who was peeking from the room. Was that all it took for her to get the message? My eldest daughter glared at my husband and immediately started packing. Maybe my second and third daughters think we're just going out to play, as they cheerfully prepare their outing sets. Even as we headed to the front door with our minimal luggage, no one emerged from the living room. My second and third daughters seemed puzzled, but they happily waved goodbye and left the house. I contacted my parents' home. Due to the distance, I've only returned home a few times since getting married. It was a sudden call, but my mother immediately said to come back whenever I could. Since they were coming to pick us up, we decided to stay overnight at a hotel. There, without telling my daughters about my husband's affair, I said this to them. Mom and Dad, our paths have diverged. My 2 young daughters, who love certain artist group, and had heard this from a recently disbanded group, seemed to understand.
That means they can't be together anymore, right?
My eldest daughter seemed to grasp my words. I returned with my daughters to my parents' house, where I was constantly busy with paperwork such as changing the family register and various other name changes and administrative procedures. And before I knew it, 2 months had passed, and I successfully received compensation and child support from my husband and his affair partner. I demanded compensation for adultery from both of them, and I also claimed child support from my husband. I didn't want to see their faces anymore, so I decided to involve lawyers in everything. It costs money, but I think it's a good investment because it relieves stress. According to the lawyer who went to see my in-laws, they fell silent like they had eaten a bitter bug when the topic of compensation and child support came up. However, it would tarnish their reputation if their son got another woman pregnant due to his infidelity. To prevent further escalation, both my husband and my in-laws desperately pooled their resources to pay for it. Moreover, it seems that my husband and in-laws even took on the compensation for the affair partner's share. Then, another 3 months passed. Although we couldn't afford luxuries, with the support of our parents, we began to lead a peaceful life as a family of 6. Both my daughters and I were gradually getting used to the absence of my husband. On a day off from work, my husband suddenly called. He kept calling repeatedly when I ignored it. Thinking that it would be troublesome if he kept calling until my daughters returned from their lessons, I reluctantly answered the call from my husband.
Thank goodness. You finally picked up the phone.
What do you want all of a sudden?
Well, you see, the affair partner gave birth the other day.
What am I supposed to say to that? Just as I was about to coldly end the call, my husband suddenly raised his voice.
The baby's sex.
According to my husband, the affair partner gave birth to a girl. And it wasn't a case of misjudgment during the ultrasound. Apparently, the doctor had confirmed it was a girl from the beginning. The reason the affair partner lied about the gender of the child she was pregnant with was to marry my husband. Apparently, my husband had been considering divorce if the child wasn't a boy, but it was my in-laws who put a stop to it. They were worried about not having any grandchildren, so my husband halted the divorce. He immediately wanted to think about having another child, but our daily life was too chaotic for that. With the baby just born, I had no job and no income. When I tried to focus on housework to perfection, I was told that it was impossible because of childcare responsibilities, and I firmly refused to take care of my in-laws. Well, it's understandable given that we were living with a baby whose neck hasn't even stabilized yet. I'm so focused on the baby that it's difficult to do housework as perfectly as before childbirth, and I don't have the physical or mental capacity for taking care of my in-laws. Despite living with such a new bride, my husband suddenly mentioned divorce. So, what's the point of telling me this? I said coldly.
Angie, please, can't we start over?
My husband said to me. Oh, it's way too late for you to think we can reconcile. I snapped at my husband.
Don't say that. Angie, please, there's something delicate about you, like a rose with thorns. I love that about you. So, let's give it another try.
My husband tried to persuade me with overly poetic words. His words sent a chill down my spine.
Angie, are you listening? We've been together for a long time, right? Just because we've been a little distant. Your feelings haven't changed, have they?
Maybe his words of love would have resonated with me when we first got married. But considering my husband's affair and our subsequent divorce, even if he says such things, all I feel now is coldness. I chuckled with a wry smile.
Your smile means you're forgiving me, right?
My husband said, misunderstanding. How are you just plain stupid? That was a wry smile. I'm not laughing, and I haven't forgiven you.
Why are you saying that? Angie, please, consider starting over. We've always managed well, right? You've been happy until now, haven't you?
It wasn't going well. That's why we argued so much. I wasn't happy. That's why I divorced you. Besides, you were the one who said you didn't need me.
Isn't that right? So, we can start over, right? I was the one who initiated the breakup. And now I'm suggesting we start over. So, let's do it.
My husband started saying all sorts of crazy things to reconcile with me. He even brought up things from the past. And honestly, I was getting fed up. But then, I suddenly had an idea and changed the topic of the conversation. You know about Henri.
What? How do you know Henri's name? We didn't even do introductions back then, did we?
My husband seemed surprised that I mentioned his remarriage partner's name. Of course I know, I heard it from the detective, and I even sent a certified letter for the alimony claim. So, she's my girlfriend.
What does Henri say?
Well, now I'm wondering who she's targeting next. You see, she enjoys interfering with happy couples and breaking them up. So, after divorcing you, I wondered who her next target would be. My husband remained silent. Was he dumbfounded, mouth agape? Regardless, I continued explaining to him what I knew about Henri. I described how Henri had always been cute since childhood, always surrounded by various people. How even her father, the company president, doted on her, buying her whatever she wanted, making her a bit spoiled. And how because she could have anything, taking things from others became a hobby. As she grew up, her targets became boyfriends, fiancés, husbands, and other men. Because she enjoyed taking, she would easily discard them after getting what she wanted. When I introduced her social circle investigated by the detective, my husband seemed taken aback.
What the hell? Why are you saying this now? If you had told me when we were divorcing, I wouldn't have gone through all this.
At that time, you just told us to leave. You didn't even bother listening to our side. So, we just did what you said. Besides, it's not like it's reasonable for a woman who knows you're married to approach you.
Don't talk like that, Angie. You're being unfair. You're making it seem like it's all my fault. If only you had explained properly back then, things would have been different.
My husband suddenly sounded dejected, playing the victim card. My anger surged at his words, and I snapped at my husband. After cheating, what's with that tone? It's not like it's bad, it's you who's bad. From now on, live however you want, I don't care anymore. To my words, my husband suddenly adopted a gentle tone.
Angie, it's going to be tough for you to raise 3 daughters alone, right? Even if I take just one and raise her by myself. So please hand over one of the 3 to me. If you do that, it'll be easier for you, Angie. Having just 2 kids is enough, right?
The sickeningly sweet tone of his proposal made my head spin. What does he even think of our daughters? Sending them to such a man is absolutely unthinkable. Neither my husband nor my in-laws truly care about the well-being of our daughters. My husband repeatedly talks as if anyone will do, or it's fine with just one, or in a way that dehumanizes them. All I can see is a future where my daughters will be crushed by my husband and in-laws as they grow older. As they grow up, they'll understand the mistreatment they've been subjected to, just like me. That's why I firmly refused. Don't be ridiculous. I'll raise my daughters properly.
Don't say that. Children still need a father, right?
My husband retorted with stubbornness. A father who can't even properly take care of his children, let alone indulge in infidelity, has no right to claim custody. To prevent my husband from misunderstanding even the slightest bit, I spoke assertively. It's up to the girls to decide if they want a father like that or not. They're still young, so until they can make their own judgments, I'll responsibly raise them. With fury, I ended the call with my husband. Perhaps it was due to immediately blocking his calls, but I never heard from him again after that. Several more months passed. It seems that my husband's divorce from Henri also went smoothly. Henri took the newborn child and returned to her parents' home. Apparently, the father of the newborn child was also married, so not only my husband but also his real wife is demanding compensation. Perhaps facing economic difficulties, she seems to be striving in childcare while receiving support from her parents at home. It's terrifying that she shows no sign of remorse even now. She acknowledges her wrongdoing and shows sincerity by paying compensation if caught. However, it seems that her father, who is the company president, advances the money for this, and she leads a carefree life. It turns out her meddling with my husband was just a whim. With her natural beauty and status, she freely took other people's boyfriends and married men as she pleased, and now she has set her sights on married men as her next target. She apparently wanted to turn married men's heads, and happened to spot us, a married couple, in the street. It's quite a nuisance to have our lives ruined on a whim like that. And the reason Henri decided to marry my husband, which usually ends once she takes what she wants, was because my husband was indecisive and too lenient with Henri. Henri was apparently looking for a man who would treat her like a princess, listen to her every whim, and buy her whatever she wanted if she decided to marry. I feel indifferent about it now. My husband, who easily succumbed to her, and Henri, his mistress, are both unbelievable, and I was speechless with disbelief. While my husband was deceived by his mistress, he could have also declined her advances. No matter what stories I hear, the fact that my husband betrayed me remains unchanged. I heard that my husband's family had been abandoned by friends and relatives and had moved far away. After moving, they unexpectedly stormed into my house only once.
Angie, stop playing around and give us one of the kids.
That's right. It's not good for you to raise them alone. So we'll raise them together.
Please stop. I'll manage raising them on my own, so it's okay. Perhaps they thought it would be okay since my youngest daughter was still very young. The three of them had fierce expressions and tried to take away my youngest daughter, so I resisted desperately.
It's impossible for you. You can't raise them while working. Hand her over.
Angie, it's pitiful. We'll take good care of her, so don't worry.
They wouldn't listen to anything I said.
Stop. Don't take her away. That's kidnapping.
My youngest daughter cried loudly, and I shouted back just as loudly, refusing to back down. The nearby residents heard our voices and quickly subdued the three of them. Soon after, the police arrived in response to the report, and the three were taken away. I thanked the neighbors repeatedly and rejoiced in my youngest daughter's safety. Afterward, the three of them were issued a restraining order. However, this incident made me consider moving again. Ultimately, I couldn't feel safe just because of the order. Since their whereabouts were known, there was always a possibility that those three would come back. if I discussed it with my parents, who lived with us. They said it would be a nuisance if they were to be harassed forever. So they decided to sell the house and move with me. However, I still felt sorry for repeatedly changing my daughter's environment. But just watching my daughters smile and grow healthy made me feel better. To protect them, I decided to move to a new place. Shortly before the move, a call came from an unregistered number. Thinking it was the moving company or someone from the municipal office, I answered, but it turned out to be Henri, of all people. After summarizing her tearful ramblings about having contracted a serious illness from having too many relationships with men, she begged for treatment and demanded the return of the compensation she had paid. I coldly replied to her pleas. "You have a wonderful sugar daddy who buys you everything, right? I have nothing to do with you." Without waiting for much of a response, I hung up. I blocked her on the spot and immediately bought a new cell phone so that she couldn't contact me anymore. While repaying my parents for their help, I will continue to do my best to ensure my daughters grow up healthy.
I don't remember being raised by you. And what's with this approach, to be frank? Isn't this kidnapping?
Don't say such rude things.
Cindy said as she smacked my cheek so hard that it made a loud noise. Do it more, I thought to myself. Soon, the taxi arrived at a slightly dingy-looking 3-story building.
Surprised, I'm the CEO's wife and living the high life, and you guys are still bottom-tier pua. That's why I thought you deserved a piece of the pie.
So she's definitely trying to take advantage of us. Eventually, I firmly declared with the help of my mom, Maria, and father, who had located me. No, my mom is only this person. For 3 times the length of time you raised me, this person has been by my side, providing a warm home.
So what? Are you willingly living a pool life with this sick person?
As Cindy said that, my father burst into laughter, looking genuinely amused.
Ha ha ha. Hey, Cindy, let me introduce you to my family with a $500 million in your revenue.
What?
My name is Catherine Ruth. I'm 18 years old and just started college this spring. I was finally able to enjoy the days away from stress after I was admitted to university.
Hey, isn't it about time?
My father, Ronnie, in an apron, shouted from the staircase leading to my room on the 2nd floor. I got it. I also raised my voice. That's because today is the day for the university enrollment procedures. Since I've decided to attend a university in the next state, I need to receive explanations about dormitories and apartments from the school.
Maybe Dad should come along after all.
I'll be fine, just me.
Really?
Dad nodded, looking a bit lonely.
Mom wanted to come, too.
It's because of work. Can't be helped. Yes, we're a family of 3. However, what's a bit different from other families is that my mom earns outside and my dad is a stay-at-home dad. My dad, Ronnie, is 48 years old now. Mom, Maria, is 48 years younger than him. And she and I aren't related by blood. But for me, she's the only my mom. The woman who abandoned me, a 3-year-old girl, and my sick dad to become the mistress of some company president I would never recognize as my mother. I would never accept her. My biological mother left us 15 years ago. Her name is Cindy. I'm so furious just mentioning the word mom, so I always refer to her in my mind without any honorifics. Still, I wouldn't dare say such things in front of Dad. He's a very kind person. If I were to speak ill of my biological parents like that, he'd surely look so sad. I don't want to see that sad expression on Dad's face. I want to keep watching Maria, my mother, gently laughing between us. There are 2 reasons why Cindy abandoned us 15 years ago. One is my dad's illness. The other is her affair with the president of the company she was working part-time for at the time. At the time, my dad couldn't reproach Cindy for her infidelity. He simply didn't have the strength. My dad's illness is basically incurable. And at that time, the symptoms were particularly severe. Upon hearing about it, Cindy reportedly shouted angrily at my dad.
Incurable. So you're saying it's a terminal illness?
In a hospital room with several beds lined up, my dad was understandably disillusioned by Cindy's insensitive remark. That's why he easily signed the divorce papers she handed him. He couldn't allow a woman like her to be my mother. At the time, I was left in the care of my paternal grandparents, who hugged me and cried, feeling sorry for me. It wasn't until I entered high school that I realized half of those tears were out of frustration. They're now in a distant nursing home, living comfortably, but apparently during that time, the atmosphere was always tense due to Cindy's mistreatment and my dad's illness. My environment changed drastically when Mom and Dad met. My dad's illness wasn't immediately life-threatening, but at the time, a long hospital stay was necessary. During this time, he needed constant intravenous medication. Now he's leading a normal life, but back then, he was always accompanied by an IV stand. It was during this time that he met Mom, who was also hospitalized. At the time, Dad was 33 and Mom was 25. Dad was doing some work remotely from the company back then, trying to get by. The company probably wanted to keep Dad, who was a capable employee, on board somehow. But even that wasn't looking good. It was at that time that they met. Mom was hospitalized due to overwork and stress at the time. Transitioning from busy days to hospital life, she was apparently having gloomy days. As the two got to know each other and shared their situations, they apparently reached the conclusion that things might work out if they were together. They seem to keep quiet about the details, probably because they can't tell their daughter everything. However, even for these two, getting married right away wasn't feasible. Especially for Mom. It seems like people around welcomed an early marriage. But it wasn't easy to understand, especially since the partner was 8 years older and had a child from a previous marriage. My mom, from my perspective, has always been kind yet strict. She'd spoil me, but also scold me when necessary. After being discharged, Mom would visit Dad tirelessly between her busy work schedule. And over the years, she and I grew closer, managing to gain understanding from those around us and getting married in the 5th year since they met. And for the next 10 years, we lived happily and peacefully. However,
Catherine, are you Catherine?
A voice I didn't recognize called out to me as I obtained the university paperwork and was about to head for the dormitory information. It was Cindy.
Hey, Catherine, do you remember me? I'm your mom.
With those words spoken in a coaxing tone, Cindy approached. I was startled and started to run away. Everyone must be confused. Since the age of 3, I've never met or seen the woman who claims to be my mother. May I ask who you are?
Don't be so formal. I'm your mom.
Now that she mentioned it, she was the person in the photos from the album. My grandma once mentioned to me that I still had photos of that woman. It couldn't be helped. In my photos until age 3, this woman inevitably appeared up close to me. Dad probably endured seeing her because he didn't want to throw away my photos. By the way, I heard the kind reason from Mom herself. Unfortunately, I don't know you.
What? Are you angry because I didn't come to see you?
With a wry smile, Cindy approached slowly. If you follow strangers, my family will be angry.
Don't say such cold things.
Saying that, Cindy reached out her hand, so I hurriedly shook it off and went back home. I heard humming as I opened the door to the apartment. My dad was preparing meals in the kitchen. Every single day, Dad would think of dishes that Mom and I liked and cook them. But I wanted to settle this matter before Mom came back. Dad. I rushed into the kitchen, flustered.
Oh, Catherine, what's wrong? You look pale. And you're earlier than expected. Oh.
Yeah, I'll talk about the dorm later. As I sat down at the dining kitchen table, Dad gave me some water, and then I said this. That woman was at the university.
That woman?
Yes, it's her. The one who abandoned us 15 years ago.
What?
Dad instinctively pulled the chair next to me and sat down.
You recognize her well, Catherine.
I've seen her in photos, and besides, she was desperately trying to get close to me.
That's troubling.
Dad crossed his arms and nodded. Hey, what do you think I should do? That woman might show up at the university again.
It's possible. There's no need to meet her. We shouldn't have any connection with her anymore. But still.
Scratching his head, Dad furrowed his brows.
Why did she suddenly approach Catherine?
What do you mean? Dad didn't answer that. After a while, Mom came back. Welcome back.
I'm home. Thanks for preparing my favorite food for dinner.
I think it's Mom's good point that she always brightly expresses her gratitude without hesitation. Her job is really busy. She leaves early in the morning and comes back late at night most of the time. She might be busier than the average father in ordinary households. I don't know whether it's because of that or because she's concerned about me, but Mom never tried to have her own children. I've asked her lightly before, and she responded like this.
No, I'm actually too busy to even think about having a child. Besides, Catherine is my only daughter.
Even so, I think it's impossible for her to have never wanted children with the person she loves. But including that, I respect and appreciate her, and I hope she'll be happy forever. Fortunately, she's still only 40 years old. If she wants, she can still have a child. Even if I go to university or become independent in the future, it might be better for there to be a child between the two of them. Besides, we have a very capable house husband in our house. From that evening on, my phone was constantly ringing with calls from an unknown number. Dad, what's this?
Showing him the call history, Dad hurriedly pulled out an old address book. It must be a number not registered in his current phone. As he flipped through the address book, eventually looking very displeased, Dad let out a big sigh.
It's her after all. How did she get Catherine's number?
I don't know. It seems she hasn't changed her number at all.
That seems to be the case. Well, she was never one to bother with inconvenient things.
Then Mom, who had just finished showering, called out while drying her hair.
What's wrong? You seem quite serious.
Dad signaled with his eyes what to do. I nodded. Mom, actually, today, Cindy suddenly showed up in front of the university. She wanted to see me.
What did you say? Are you okay? Did anything happen?
Dropping the towel, Mom immediately showed her concern for me. I'm okay, nothing happened, but I had to postpone the dorm or apartment introductions, so I'll have to reschedule for another day.
Goodness, I wish I could go with you.
Saying that, Mom let out a big sigh.
Ronnie, please go with her next time.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's handle the dorm and other procedures together then. How about Monday?
Sounds good.
Mom said, then she fell into deep thought. My dad drained her hair with a towel my mom threw out and dried her hair with a hairdryer. I think they're a good couple when I see them like this. I want our family to stay like this forever. That's why I'm scared to think about what Cindy, who suddenly appeared out of nowhere, might be thinking. And after spending the entire weekend at home, on Monday, I decided to go back to the university with Dad to complete the procedures. We were leisurely walking the way to the station. The university is a few stations away from the nearest one. The two of us strolled along leisurely. We talked about dorms and apartments. However, suddenly I felt my body losing balance.
Catherine,
Dad shouted. My right arm was grabbed, and I was pulled into the taxi.
Driver, let this car out quickly.
A familiar voice pierced my ears. It was Cindy. I saw Dad panicking through the window, but before he could open the door, the taxi took off. What on earth are you doing? Finally regaining my composure, I shouted loudly.
Because you kept ignoring my calls.
Who answers calls from unknown numbers repeatedly these days?
Exactly. That's why I came directly like this.
As Cindy leaned in closer, I hesitated slightly at her intense gaze.
Would you mind coming with me without saying anything?
No, thanks.
How rude. I'm your mother, you know.
I snorted at her words.
What's with that attitude?
Do you really think you're a mother to me? Choose my words carefully, clearly conveying each one. Make sure it's loud enough for the previous driver to hear.
Because I gave birth to you. You're my daughter.
I don't remember being raised by you. And what's with this approach, Toby Frank? Isn't this kidnapping?
Don't say such rude things.
Cindy said as she smacked my cheek so hard that it made a loud noise. Do it more, I thought to myself. Eventually, the taxi arrived at a slightly dingy 3-story building. Where are we?
My company. Surprised. I'm the president's wife, living the high life. You guys are still poor bottom feeders, right? So I thought you deserved a piece of the pie.
She's trying to take advantage after all. I thought. Once inside the building, Cindy pushed me into a nearby room and locked the door. "What are you doing?" As I kept banging on the door, I shouted to Cindy outside.
"Just wait here for a moment."
"What's going on?" I quickly sent a message to my dad that I was here. I took a screenshot of the map's current location and the view from the room's window and sent them as well. Immediately, I received a reply, "Just stay still, I'll do something." Of course, that's what I intended to do. Soon, Cindy unlocked the door and pulled me out. As she grabbed my arm, we climbed the stairs together and reached a room on the second floor. We could hear voices from inside. Cindy swung the door open with a loud bang. As expected, there were several people inside. From the position of the desk and whiteboard, it seemed like a meeting.
What in the world is this? We're in the middle of a meeting.
Among them, a younger-looking man with glasses stood up and approached us. Cindy also pulled me inside as she entered.
"What do you mean, Edward? I think I have the right to participate in a meeting to decide the future direction of the company as his wife."
We didn't call for you.
"Oh, I don't think you should talk like that to your stepmother, do you?"
"I see. So basically, this guy Edward with the glasses is the president's son. But the whiteboard has something written about the next management policy or something. And the president himself isn't here. What does that mean?"
You're just the old man's second wife. Besides, you've been involved with him since my mother was around. What kind of stepmother are you?
That's right. After the president passed away, there should have been discussions after the funeral about what comes next.
Cindy, what on earth are you doing here all of a sudden?
"Oh, acting all high and mighty, just because you used to be my boss."
For some reason, Cindy pushed me forward.
"Hey, Edward, the girl who's like your stepsister is struggling to pay for university. Can't you spare a little money for her tuition?"
"What?" I was taken aback. Is that why I was brought here?
Tuition.
Edward's tone changed slightly.
"Yeah, this girl is my real daughter, just turned 18. She's just started university, living in poverty with her sick father. So, if you have any intention of supporting this girl even a little bit, couldn't you allocate a bit more of his estate to me?"
I looked at Edward's face. I could easily sense his discomfort. All right, it's time for me to speak up. "What are you talking about? I haven't heard anything about this."
"What are you saying?"
But it's true. I was suddenly brought here.
Suddenly.
Edward latched onto my words. That's right. Suddenly, I was trying to go to the dormitory procedure with my dad, not the university procedure.
So, university procedures are already done, including tuition.
Yes, exactly. Edward glanced at Cindy. She seemed puzzled, as if she sensed something odd. Edward continued to ask me,
"So, why are you here, and how did you get here?"
"By taxi. I have no business here myself. I was forced to come here by this person."
"Shut up."
With that, Cindy slapped the other cheek this time. What a powerful hand. My cheeks were stinging. Doesn't this person know how to take it easy? Anyway, I thought I'd try to buy some time. My dad, whom I contacted, and probably my mom too, will take some action. Until now, I had to somehow extract as much information as possible from these people.
I see. You really don't know anything, huh?
Edward started.
I'm the son of the former president of this company. I'm technically supposed to be the president from this fiscal year. So, are you my stepsister?
No, I don't feel that way at all. I said firmly. I was abandoned by this person when I was 3 years old, along with my sick father. At that moment, I felt the surrounding air turn cold all at once. Of course, all eyes were on Sydney. Why is she so thoughtless? Does she think I'm still the same 3-year-old from when we parted ways? Does she think I, now a university student, would just obey her words out of fear? Perhaps those 15 years don't exist in her mind. I remember it well. You've only called us once, haven't you? I remember what you said then.
What did I say?
You said the same thing to me just now, that you're the president's wife and living the high life while we're just poor folks from the bottom. That's what you said while laughing. I felt the people around us recoil all at once.
Did she really say something like that? When was it?
Well, you mentioned living the high life, so that means you got remarried, right? I had no idea about that. I think it was about 10 years ago.
Going off to university means you were still in elementary school back then. Were you really told such terrible things at such a young age?
Yes, I nodded. But by that time, her words weren't really that big of a deal anymore. And then it happened. There was a flurry of people running into the company building.
Catherine, are you okay?
Catherine, are you all right? Where are you?
I could hear the loud voices of my dad and mom. Then there were several pairs of footsteps following them. I poked my head out into the hallway and shouted, "Over here, Dad, Mom." Relying on my voice, they rushed down the stairs and the hallway even faster.
Catherine.
With a clack, they opened the door.
You're safe, Catherine. Thank goodness.
My mom exclaimed as she flew into my arms.
Oh my goodness. We were so worried.
I'm fine, just got slapped on both cheeks.
Oh, slapped twice, huh?
Someone behind my parents stared at my face intently and aimed a camera.
A quick picture, please.
I stuck my face out firmly for him. My cheeks stung from Cindy's slaps, but I made sure to capture it as evidence.
Hey, who are you people?
Cindy pointed at my parents and yelled,
Oh, so you've forgotten the face of your ex-husband from 15 years ago.
Ronnie, is that you? What's with this lively appearance of yours?
What's wrong with being lively?
Well, I see. I guess that's why I couldn't immediately grasp the fact that my dad was with me. Apparently, she genuinely believed that my dad had been bedridden due to illness all this time.
You said it was an incurable disease.
I'm not cured. It's just that I can live even without being cured. Do you know what remission means?
Remission.
Apparently, she didn't know it.
Remission refers to a temporary relief or disappearance of symptoms. There's a chance of recovery, but the risk of recurrence is high.
Yeah, that's why he's not cured. He always have to be careful about his physical condition, take multiple medications regularly, and continue to visit the hospital regularly.
So, incurable disease isn't just a lie.
Cindy picks up on that remark from my mom.
What about you?
What are you doing to my daughter? That slap on her cheeks.
She's my daughter. I can do whatever I want, can't I?
I can't just stay silent there. No, my mother is the only one for me. She's been by my side, providing a warm home for me for 3 times longer than you raised me.
So what? Are you willingly living a pool life with this sick person?
Ha ha ha.
My dad bursts into laughter, seemingly finding it amusing.
Hey, Cindy, let me introduce you to my family and the company with an annual revenue of $500 million.
Well then, nice to meet you again, Cindy. I'm Maria Ruth, the wife of this person. You abandoned him and our 3-year-old Catherine to become the mistress of another man. I've heard the story, but it's still unbelievable how shameless you are.
That's quite an interesting story. I'd like to hear more about it.
This time, Edward also gets interested in the conversation.
Oh, by the way, Mrs. Ruth, speaking of $500 million in revenue, are you by any chance the president of DIL Corporation?
Yes, that's right. We should have been doing business with them.
My mom flashes a bright smile at everyone except Cindy. Yes, this person who supports our daily lives with such dedication is the president. Since her 20s, she's been entrusted with the major role of being the company's president. The first time she met my dad was when she couldn't bear the heavy burden of the sudden responsibility that fell on her and ended up hospitalized due to the physical and mental strain. My mom was born as the only daughter of the founder's family. However, she lost both her parents in an accident. At the young age of 25, she took over the presidency, but she was truly troubled by the high expectations from those around her and the difficulty of meeting them. Then, when she was hospitalized for severe stress-induced gastritis, she met me when I came to visit my dad, who was aiming for remission. I heard that my dad said this to my mom at the time.
It's important to entrust things you can't do anything about to someone you trust.
That seemed to greatly ease my mom's mind. And afterward, amidst the meddling of relatives who kept pushing for matchmaking, she decided to marry her father, who made her feel at ease and natural, where she could even rely on him, despite being tired of the interference.
You seem quite thrilled after becoming the president's wife following the death of the previous one here. Well, my current wife is the president herself.
That's right.
Edward chimed in.
DIL Corporation handles all the specialized cleaning tasks for our company's related departments. And this person here is the president of that company. If you have even a slight interest in economics, she's someone you should know.
Cindy was dumbfounded by Edward's words.
Yes, that's correct. We handle cleaning operations in a very broad sense, from regular cleaning to more specialized tasks. I believe we've had dealings with them since my father's time, but it seems we should reconsider the contract this time.
Mom remarked, surveying the group with a stern expression.
Right? It would make sense to terminate the contract with a company associated with someone who'd go as far as kidnapping our daughter. Can't trust them.
Upon hearing this, the senior executives present shifted uncomfortably.
Please spare us.
Our business wouldn't survive without the cooperation of your company.
Oh, really?
Cindy looked bewildered by what was being said.
Cindy, did you really not know about that? And yet, you've been trying to stop me from becoming the president and even attempting to withdraw money. Ignorance can only go so far. In fact, your presence in this company is nothing but harmful, isn't it? Right, everyone?
Absolutely.
Jay, that's right.
The company's senior executives voiced their agreement.
Wait a minute, are you saying?
In the first place, didn't we already give you your inheritance from my father's will long ago? What happened to that money? Are you suggesting that you've spent it all in such a manner, or was it originally some kind of debt?
Edward pressed further.
You must have used it for something, right?
Mom interjected.
A suspicious person approached my daughter the other day, so I hurriedly checked you out within 2 days.
Well, in those 2 days? Oh, right. It was on the weekend. And the lawyer who took photos earlier nodded.
As per the president's request, we conducted an investigation into this person's background, and it seems they've been lavishing a young man with money for quite some time now. Moreover, it appears the payments have been overdue for a while, perhaps prompting demands for repayment.
Wow, so that's what she was up to. I shot Cindy a look of disbelief.
Thank you for looking into it.
No problem. It's not good to have someone with serious issues like that involved with our business partners.
Sure, any harm to such companies should be dealt with as soon as possible.
Edward chimed in, and our lawyer nodded in agreement. Suddenly, several men entered from behind.
Cindy Hayes, you're under arrest for abduction and confinement.
The men with police badges stepped forward, handcuffing Cindy.
What's going on? I just took my daughter with me.
You divorced me ages ago and even dumped custody on me, didn't you? You're considered a stranger by that point.
And I don't recall receiving any child support from you. What right does an absentee parent have to say anything? I added exasperatedly. And to think, you have no idea how wrong your actions were, like snatching me right in front of my dad into a taxi.
How dare you?
I don't care if you're mad. This needed to be said. I fixed Cindy with a stern gaze. I never wanted to think about you. Just disappear from my sight and never show your face again. Cindy froze at those words. All right, let's go, the police said, pushing her out. Cindy was formally arrested for abduction and is currently being interrogated. What a sloppy crime. Not noticing Dad walking nearby was one thing, but the fact that she abruptly dragged me into a taxi is the biggest issue. Inside the car, I had a conversation that wasn't of my own volition, emphasizing that I currently have no feelings towards her. I wanted to make it clear to the driver that I was clearly not happy about it. As expected, the suspicious driver apparently broadcasted our conversation over the radio. And it seems the top brass at the taxi company found the conversation and its audio recording suspicious, so they recorded it. But seriously, it was incredibly stupid of Cindy not to confiscate my smartphone. With today's smartphones, it's commonplace to easily pinpoint your current location and send a map image. Well, I was taught crisis management skills by my mom, and apparently she was taught methods to locate herself at home just in case something happened. By the way, it seems Cindy embezzled a considerable amount of money, as the company is now demanding reimbursement. In the future, there will be a criminal trial for confinement, and well, there's no doubt she'll end up behind bars. We won't show any mercy, regardless of what the other side's lawyer says. Cindy should learn her lesson from her own folly.
Okay, smile, smile.
On the day of moving into the university dormitory, Dad and I lined up in front of the house taking photos.
Okay, next it's my turn.
With that, Mom handed the camera to Dad, and they switched positions for taking photos.
You two look really beautiful when you're standing together.
Dad chimed in, albeit a bit awkwardly. Must be the spring weather.
But you know, we won't be able to see each other for a while.
Mom said, her voice trembling with emotion. Dad patted her shoulder reassuringly. Seeing them like that, I spoke up. Hey, I have a favor to ask.
Oh, what is it?
I really want to see my little brother or sister. And just like that, both of their faces turned red.
Isn't it a bit late for that?
Not really. I mean, Mom, you're 40 now, right? You're still plenty young enough to have kids. And I'm already an adult, so how about you and Dad live alone for a while and show me my little brother and sister?
Don't say things like that.
Mom said, hugging me tightly.
You're my one and only daughter.
Well, but Mom, you're someone who's filled with love more than anyone else, so I'm sure you'll feel lonely without me.
Oh goodness. That's why I should have sent you to a school closer by.
That's impossible, I chuckled wryly. Well, the truth is, wanting to see my little brother or sister and feeling lonely without me are just excuses. Mom is currently the head of the company, but I don't think it's right for me to take over after her. Dad agrees with that, too. After all, I'm her stepdaughter, not Mom's biological child. Even if Mom treats me as her own, others won't acknowledge it. This company, in particular, is a well-established mid-sized enterprise that has been around for a long time. It has a tradition of family management in a positive sense. She's not unaware of the fact. After a moment of silence, Mom nodded decisively.
You're right. Then maybe I'll give it a try, just a little bit.
She hesitated and then smiled a bit shyly. Whichever way things go, we're still a family. We've been doing fine until now. And I'm sure we'll continue to get along well in the future.
The baby's crying at night was so loud, I changed the locks.
Well, what am I supposed to do then? When I asked David, for some reason, my in-laws' voices came back.
Sleep outside with the kid.
Laughing followed that unbelievable statement from my in-laws. So, the in-laws were in on it too. Realizing that, I let out a sigh and retorted. Fine, just don't complain about where I sleep.
What?
My in-laws and David let out a bewildered voice. They must have thought I had nowhere to go. But unfortunately for them, I do have a place to go, and it's somewhere inconvenient for them. They'll have to regret it after I've gone. I won't care what they say later. Right now, all that matters to me is Emily. If I can protect her, I don't care if you guys are ruined. I made up my mind and turned my back on my husband's family. My name is Mary. Next month, I'll be celebrating my 30th birthday, and I'm a stay-at-home mom. Though I'm a stay-at-home mom, I'm not doing housework right now. Not because I'm slacking off, but because my daughter Emily was born just 2 weeks ago, and I'm currently resting. So, I'm not doing any housework at all. But my husband David doesn't care about that.
Why aren't you doing the housework? Just want to slack off.
My Phil Robert, who was supposed to have attended the birth of my mill, seems to have no idea.
People usually start doing housework the day after.
It's really appalling that he can say that with such confidence. Doesn't anyone understand me? Things aren't going well with my husband, and I'm distant from my in-laws. I have no parents anymore, and no relatives to rely on. But even if I'm alone, I absolutely have to protect Emily. Thinking this, I've been able to keep going. Maybe getting married was a mistake. I've been thinking that a lot lately. But before we married, David and my in-laws were kind to me. Especially my in-laws, who even offered to pay for the wedding. Are you sure we can accept the wedding expenses from you?
It's our only son's wedding. We'd be laughed at by the relatives if we skimmed.
My mill, Susan, laughed as she said that. And my Phil Robert felt the same.
Both David and I work in the bridal industry. Many of our company's associates will be there, and we can afford a shabby wedding.
David and Robert work for the same bridal company. It's quite well known locally. Moreover, they have a wide range of businesses. Their main business is running a wedding venue, but it seems they also handle restaurants for receptions. In other words, many of their associates have a deep understanding of weddings. So that's why a cheap wedding was out of the question. I understood why my in-laws offered to cover the costs. Thanks to their help, David and I had a quite lavish wedding. But the good times ended with the wedding. Once I started living with my husband's family, my in-laws began to make demands.
Hey, Mary, still not pregnant?
Oh, well. I gave a vague response. Then, Susan dramatically sighed.
Huh, you're useless.
Useless? I asked back, surprised. But Susan quickly looked away.
It's nothing.
She obviously dodged a question. Is this bullying? The thought crossed my mind for a moment, but I felt indebted for the wedding expenses they covered. In the end, I couldn't confront Susan about it. On the other hand, Robert treated me like a housemaid.
Hey, there's no snacks.
Sorry, I'll prepare them now.
You should have done this before I got back. Pretty bad for a wife.
Robert started grumbling. I was shocked. What does he mean by for a wife? Am I supposed to take care of him too? I married David to be his wife. I'm willing to do anything for him. Of course, I intend to do my best for my in-laws as well. But being ordered around feels a bit off. Is this what they really think of me? I was bewildered by the sudden change in my in-laws' attitudes. However, I didn't have the courage to oppose them. I thought I'd be kicked out if I did. I quit my job when I got married. I don't have much savings left. Also, I have no parents. I mean, if I were to divorce, I'd have no one to rely on. That fear kept me from standing up to my in-laws. Even if Susan bullied me or Robert treated me like a maid, I had no choice but to endure. I suppressed my feelings deep inside. And so, 6 months have passed since our wedding. I felt suddenly sick while preparing breakfast and collapsed right there.
What's wrong?
Susan asked, sounding annoyed. Just feeling a bit.
Ha, so sloppy.
Sorry. Just a moment, I said and rushed to the bathroom. But my condition didn't improve no matter how much time passed.
Hey, what are you doing, Mary? Leaving the housework undone. What are you going to do?
I am sorry.
Sorry isn't enough. I'm going to work, so make sure you do the housework. Got it?
David yelled loudly. I felt too sick to even respond. Hours passed, and I finally started to feel a bit better. However, Susan was waiting for me in the living room.
You've come up with a good excuse to skip housework.
I'm not trying to skip, it's just.
Don't talk back to me. Just quietly do the cleaning and laundry.
I flinched at Susan's loud voice. Unaware of my feelings, Susan was staring at me intently. I guess I have no choice but to do it. I sighed internally and began the housework. I managed to get through that day, but my health didn't fully recover for a long time. Eventually, suspecting something was wrong, I visited the hospital a few days later. To my surprise, I found out I was pregnant. I rushed home and first reported it to Susan. Suddenly, she changed her tune.
You were pregnant. You should have said so earlier.
Susan smiled cheerfully. Then, she suddenly started calling someone.
It's been a while. Actually, my DIL is pregnant.
From her conversation, it seemed like she was bragging to relatives. I might get treated a bit better now. I harbored a faint hope. But I was wrong. Even knowing about my pregnancy, my in-laws' treatment of me didn't change. Worse, I overheard Robert saying something shocking.
Once the heir is born, we don't need DIL anymore. My son could even divorce her.
Robert was gleefully talking on the phone with an acquaintance. I was genuinely horrified. The in-laws only needed an heir. I had a feeling because of the way they treated me. But hearing it said outright was heartbreaking. I bit my lip and continued with the housework. Of course, I considered consulting David. But as soon as he learned about my pregnancy, David started coming home late. When I asked why, David retorted,
You're pregnant now, so I've fulfilled my duty as a husband.
What do you mean?
If a wife doesn't get pregnant, relatives look down on us, right?
I cooperated just for that. David justified his selfish reasoning. What? Don't joke around.
Shut up. Just give birth. That's your duty as a wife.
David looked at me as if our marriage was just an obligation. At that moment, I realized everything. David won't help me. He's not even an ally. I'm all alone here. And my in-laws were kind to me before our marriage, not because they cared about me. They were nice just because they wanted a housekeeper who would give birth to their heir. As soon as I realized this, my tension snapped. All my love for David disappeared. That's right. Once this child is born, I'll get a divorce. From that day on, that's what I thought. If that's the case, I need to prepare for the divorce. In the few days leading up to the birth, I arranged for a private investigation into David and my in-laws' conduct. Time passed, and the day of the birth arrived. A beautiful baby girl was born. I named her Emily. The day I brought Emily home, both my in-laws and David seemed happy. However, their expressions gradually darkened. And then, an incident occurred. It happened on the day of Emily's 1-month checkup. After the checkup, the CEO of David's company, George, offered to drive me home. Apparently, George's daughter had given birth around the same time as me. We ended up having our checkups together, and through George's kindness, I was offered a ride home. However, when we arrived at my house, we encountered a problem. For some reason, the front door wouldn't open. In my confusion, I rang the doorbell and called out, "Hey, David, the front door won't open." Then, David's voice came from inside the house.
The baby's crying was so loud, I changed the locks.
"You changed the locks on the door without telling me?" I asked back, and David raised his voice.
She cries every day. I want some peace and quiet, so don't come back.
What am I supposed to do then? When I asked David again, for some reason, my in-laws' voices came back.
Sleep outside with the kid.
Laughing followed that unbelievable statement from my in-laws. So, the in-laws were in on it too. Realizing that, I let out a sigh mixed with resignation. Fine, just don't complain about where I sleep.
What?
My in-laws and David let out a bewildered voice. They must have thought I had nowhere to go. But unfortunately for them, I do have a place to go, and it's somewhere inconvenient for them. They'll just have to regret it after I've gone. I won't care what they say later. Right now, all that matters to me is Emily. If I can protect her, I don't care if you guys are ruined. I made up my mind and turned my back on my husband's family. I approached George. "Well, you heard that, right?"
Of course.
"So, about what you mentioned earlier, could you please help me?" I asked George. The topic in question was something George had discussed with me on the way home. There are several hotels aimed at postnatal care. George's company, which operates a bridal business, was also looking to incorporate this postnatal care.
We want to engage with our customers over the long term, from marriage to childbirth and parenting.
That's what George had said. And it was then that he had offered me to be a monitor for that plan. George nodded in response to my question.
I'll guide you there right away.
Thank you.
Regardless, that behavior is unacceptable.
George stared intently at my husband's family home. He was probably thinking of imposing some form of retribution on the three of them. Well, as a company CEO, especially one planning to venture into kids' business, he couldn't overlook this. Considering this, I made a proposal to George. It was a plan I had been contemplating since before the birth, and George nodded emphatically upon hearing it.
Let's cooperate on your proposal.
Thank you. This way, I gained a strong ally. However, my body was utterly exhausted. So, that day, I was sent directly to the postnatal care hotel. Thanks to George's influence, I was able to stay at the hotel. The postnatal care plan I experienced there was excellent. The hotel had professional staff like midwives available 24 hours, 7 days. Moreover, the support was comprehensive, and the environment was designed for relaxation. There were other new moms like me, and for the first time in a long while, I could relax. I wish I could stay here forever. I found myself uttering those words. I truly rested well. And the next day, George came to see me. In front of me, he made a call to David. Soon, David answered the phone.
Hello, David. Sorry to disturb you on your day off.
Hello, what can I do for you?
Well, I have a favor to ask.
George began with that introduction and then broached the subject.
I'd like you and your family to be models for a pamphlet. Could you do that?
My wife, myself, and my daughter as models.
See, your daughter was just born, right? Perfect for our pamphlet's model.
Indeed, for a bridal-related pamphlet, it could be considered an ideal assignment. But David had just kicked me out. There's no way he could accept under these circumstances. I smirked to myself. If David refused George's direct request, it would undoubtedly affect his career. That was my plan, to inflict damage on David. However, David accepted the offer without hesitation.
Sure, we'll do it. Leave it to us.
I panicked. This won't harm David at all. My plan has failed. That's when I saw George smirk. Then he said to David,
Then, come to the studio right away. How about in an hour?
An hour?
Yes, we'll have the staff ready.
David began to panic and interrupt as George was speaking.
Wait a minute, please. Today is just not possible.
Why not?
Well, I need to discuss it with my wife.
David started to stutter out excuses. It seemed he thought he had enough time to persuade me if given the chance. That's what you get for answering without thinking. Serves you right. I couldn't stop grinning.
Then, go talk to her right now. Your daughter has just been born. She must be around, right?
George pressed further. David fell completely silent. Eventually, David said he would discuss it and hung up the phone. Needless to say, he tried to call me relentlessly afterward. Of course, I ignored all of it. My phone rang non-stop for about 30 minutes. But finally, it seemed he gave up, and my phone went quiet. Immediately after, George's phone rang.
Well, my wife is saying she's too embarrassed.
I hadn't said anything of the sort. As I thought this, George audibly sighed in an exaggerated manner.
Can't even persuade your own wife, huh?
No, it's not like that.
I'm disappointed in you.
As George said this, David began to apologize loudly enough for me to hear.
I'm very sorry. I'll definitely persuade her.
His voice of apology sounded as if David was prostrating right in front of me. After making David apologize for a while, George ended the call. Then, he called Robert.
Hello, Robert, is it?
Hello, George. What can I do for you?
I have a gift for you. Would you accept it?
As he said this, George looked at me. I nodded with a smile, and then George spoke up.
You know that our company runs a restaurant for wedding receptions, right?
Of course.
I'm thinking of lending it to you.
Lending it?
Robert must have been puzzled. This was also part of my plan. First, George himself would offer to lend the spacious reception restaurant to Robert. Then, he suggested hosting a debut party for the grandchild there. Once the 1-month checkup is over, it's time for the baby to start going out for walks. That's the timing for the debut party. In a normal family, they might jump at such an opportunity. But my current family situation was different. Robert had just kicked me out, and there was no way I would accept an invitation from him. So, Robert started making excuses in a panic.
No, our family is. Well,
What? Are you refusing my gift?
no, not at all. It's just, I have to consider my daughter-in-law's health.
Robert began to say things he didn't mean. I was irked. But then, George chimed in.
Was there a problem at the 1-month checkup?
No, it's not that.
Then, have the debut party. I'll cover the costs, so don't worry. The date will be.
George continued to push forward with the arrangements. Throughout, I could hear Robert's panic voice leaking through. He's panicking. What's he going to do, I wonder? I was struggling to contain my laughter. Finally, George finished speaking and unilaterally ended the call. Immediately after, my phone began to ring. It's from Robert. I smirked, holding my smartphone. Now, what should I do? I pondered. There was no need to even listen to what Robert wanted. So, ignoring him was an option. But ignoring him wouldn't be fun. And my feelings would remain unsettled. So, I decided to answer the call.
Hello, is that Mary?
His voice was louder than usual. Was he that panicked? Regardless, I responded with a sullen voice. Hello, Robert.
Thank goodness. Mary, please listen to me.
No, I can't. I flatly refused. For a moment, Robert seemed stunned, but he quickly regained his composure and started pleading with me.
Don't say that. It's a once-in-a-lifetime request, please.
At this point, I felt as though I had already won. But, containing my laughter, I prompted him to continue. What is it?
There's something I need to ask.
He relayed to me what George had discussed. But it all sounded too convenient. He didn't say it was George's directive, nor did he mention that the date was already set. He just kept repeating that he wanted to have the debut party and that he would reserve the place. So, I coldly replied, I refuse. I've been kicked out, after all.
It's not like that. It was, well.
Robert began to list his excuses. At this point, I was so annoyed that I raised my voice. Then, if you apologize to me, I might consider attending the debut party.
That is.
He faltered. If you apologize to me, I will consider it. Bye. With that, I hung up the phone. He surely won't apologize to me, no matter what. I was utterly confident in that assumption. Contrary to my expectations, I received Robert's apology on my smartphone. This caused a shift in my strategy. I intended to make the debut party fail, and he was going to apologize to George. I needed to think of another method. While I was making a troubled face, George beside me offered some advice.
How about this for the debut party?
I listened intently to his suggestion. It was a truly interesting idea. Moreover, it could give David and my in-laws a taste of their own medicine. Let's do that. I immediately began preparations. Days passed, and the day of the debut party arranged by George arrived. Of course, I hadn't returned to my husband's family home at all. In fact, I hadn't even been in contact with David or my in-laws. They little suspense won't hurt them. With that thought, I headed to the venue with George. Speaking into the venue, I saw my in-laws being questioned by relatives.
What's going on? She's not here.
That's strange, Robert.
Well.
Robert was sweating bullets. Other relatives were pressing David.
Didn't you leave the house together with your wife?
No, well.
There was no way we could have left together, because I wasn't even living with them. But I felt bad for making them wait too long. I slowly entered the venue with George. Sorry to keep you waiting.
Finally here.
Robert was relieved. On the other hand, David approached me.
What were you doing, Mary?
Preparing for the debut party. What else?
Preparation. But where's Emily?
David frantically looked around, as if he cared after neglecting us all this time. With a sigh, I replied, Emily is being looked after by her babysitter.
Then the debut party.
I prepared a slideshow. That should be fine. Saying that, I pushed David aside. Then I explained the situation to the gathered relatives. Emily couldn't be brought here, but we've prepared a slideshow for you. As I spoke, a staff member started setting up the slideshow. While confirming their progress, I continued. I'm very sorry, but please enjoy this. At my signal, gentle music began to play. The room darkened, and several photos appeared on the screen. At that moment, a gasp of surprise echoed through the venue.
What is this?
What appeared on the screen amidst the murmuring crowd were photos of David's infidelity. Following that, photos of Robert's affair were displayed.
No way, the worst.
Naturally, seeing the photos, both David and Robert turned pale. However, David quickly sprang into action, trying to stop the slideshow.
Stop it. Don't show this.
Oh, you got what you deserved, didn't you?
Is this your doing? Why would you do this?
David yelled at me. So, I shot back. Because you locked me and Emily out. You changed the locks while we were gone. The venue fell silent. Then, whispers began to spread.
Locked out?
What do you mean?
Amidst those voices, I revealed the conversation about changing the locks. I also mentioned that George was there to witness it.
No, that can't be true, right?
Sorry, but it's true. Since George saw the scene, he cooperated with me. I said, and George nodded.
This is the end.
David crumbled. Turning around, Robert was already in a state of shock.
Going forward, our company is entering the kids business. So, we don't need employees who can take care of their children.
It was because of sleep deprivation.
No excuses. Resign yourself. If not, I'll fire you, even if it causes trouble.
George's determination was formidable. Eventually, Robert and David submitted their resignation letters immediately. After that, I filed for divorce from David. The photos of the affair made the divorce between me and David proceed smoothly. Additionally, David agreed to pay me $20,000 in alimony. Since he had severance pay, the alimony was quickly transferred. I also demanded alimony from the woman involved in the affair, but she claimed she didn't know David was married. She agreed to pay me alimony and is also seeking it from David. It might get messy, but that's none of my concern. It seems Robert and Susan are not divorcing. They wanted to, but David's legal fees depleted their savings. They will sell their house to cover their living expenses and move into an apartment together. Considering the child support my husband owes me, I hope they manage their budget well. Meanwhile, George offered me a job.
We have an employee leaving, so if you're interested, would you like to work with us?
It could go like this. Emily is still young, but I need to work to survive. So, I'm thinking of taking George up on his offer soon. But for now, I want to quietly spend precious time with Emily. After all the trouble, I think I deserve this little luxury.